my brother Bray's best friend, his heart, GM, Gurl Mad. So when you see Baby Bray say I'm GM, he's talking about Gurl Mad. Gurl Mad wasn't no punk.
Nominee.
In today's video, we're going to talk about Gurl Madmo, aka B Bray's girlfriend GM. We're also going to break down each generation of the Madmos. We're going to break down who Madmo number 1 is and Madmo number 2. We're going to cover each of their cases, their life story, and more. This is definitely the craziest story I've done so far. Now let's get into it. But to understand their story, I feel like we got to start off with Madmo number 1. Madmo 1 would be Madmo 2's blood brother. They would have the same mother and father. Madmo 1, who is 49 years old right now, is currently incarcerated for a double homicide and an attempted murder. He was arrested at the age of 20, and the year was 1997, but the murder took place September 23rd of 1996. At 3:25 in the morning, a vehicle would break down on Santa Monica Freeway and Crenshaw Boulevard. Then when they were trying to inspect the vehicle, 2 young men in a Honda would stop behind the vehicle, then pull up alongside it. And after the white Honda was side by side with the broken down vehicle, somebody inside of the white Honda would utter a gang slur. And without waiting for a response, one of the young men inside of the white Honda would fire 2 shots into the broken down vehicle, hitting 2 out of the 3 people in the vehicle and killing both of them. The victims were a 17-year-old Aaron Johnson, Larry Logan, who was 23, and a 26-year-old man who was in the back seat that was unharmed. A whole year would go by before Madmo 1 would be arrested for the murder. As you see at the top left, the arrest date is September 30th of 1997. This would be him around that time. But remember, they would be looking for 2 people, so he would have a co-defendant, and he would be arrested for the same exact charges. But as you see, his arrest date would be 2 years later, on July of 1998. They would take it to trial, and 3 years later, on October 7th of 1999, they would be found guilty. Madmo 1 would receive life without parole for 1 murder, and then on the second murder he would receive 26 years to life, and he would be sentenced on November 5th of 1999, and his co-defendant would be sentenced to the death penalty for both charges, and he would be sentenced on December 17th of 2001. This would be his article on change.org, and as you see, he's trying to get exonerated. And it says that the witness mistakenly identified Omar Jones, and after 15 years, this same witness recanted his statement, saying that Omar Jones wasn't the one who killed his friend and cousin. He later revealed he was compensated in exchange for his testimony. But the judge still denied his appeal, stating that the witness took too long to come forward and wasn't credible. And that would be the same witness that the district attorney used to convict him. But now let's talk about his little brother, Madmo number 2, aka KS. Now as you can see from this picture, he would have DLB on his forehead, which stands for Denver Lane Bloods, and he would have KS on his cheek, which stands for Killer Salo. Salo would be a nickname for the 107 WhosWhos, and as you see, they're the closest to the Denver Lane Bloods. He was the one that was on Munchie B's podcast, talking about if B Bray's got airlifted or not. He also has an episode on No Jumper with Brick Baby. But let's dive into his court cases. Madmo number 2, aka KS, would be in and out of jail his whole life. But we're gonna start off with his first major case. He was arrested on January 20th of 2011 for 1 count of assault with a firearm on a person and 1 count of assault with a firearm on a peace officer / firefighter. He would have to sit for about 3 weeks, but on February 10th of 2011, he would bail out for $50,000. And 2 months after bailing out, he would take a plea deal for the assault with a firearm on a person on April 27th of 2011, but they would allow him to stay on bail while he fought the other count of assault with a firearm on a peace officer. But then 4 months after they allowed him to stay on bail, he would catch a whole new case on August 1st of 2011 for grand theft from a person. He would then have to sit in the county jail while he fought both cases, the assault with a firearm on a peace officer and the grand theft from a person. And don't forget, he was still waiting for his sentencing for the assault with a firearm on a person. But on January 17th of 2012, he would take a plea deal for the grand theft from a person. And on that same exact day, he would have the assault with a firearm on a peace officer dismissed. as you see January 17th of 2012. He would also be sentenced on that day though, and he would receive 4 years in prison for the assault with a firearm on a person, and he would get 2 years in prison for the grand theft from a person, so 6 years in total. But he had about 2.5 years of time served. He would then be released in 2018, and he would manage to stay out of trouble for a few. But in 2020, he would catch another case, and this time it would be for 1 count of murder, 3 counts of assault with a firearm on a person, 1 count of conspiracy to commit any crime, and 1 count of possession of a firearm by a felon. And if you look to the right, the offense date would be August 1st of 2020, but he wasn't arrested until 2 months later, October 6th of 2020. And how ironic that that would be 1 day before the 107 WhosWhos set day. But he wasn't the only one arrested. He would have 3 co-defendants, 2 females and 1 male. And his co-defendant would be GM's brother, and his moniker would be Tiny Emac. And as you see in this picture right here, this would be him and Baby Braze. The victim's name was Damon Harper, and he was 44 years old at the time. He was killed in a drive-by on the 800 block of West 104th Place. It happened at 6 o'clock at night, and police are claiming it's gang-related. 2 women and a man approached in the vehicle and started to shoot. The 800 block of West 104th Place would be in the 107 WhosWhos territory. But unfortunately, a year into fighting this case, somebody would kill Gurl Mad on September 25th of 2021. We're gonna double back and talk about that though. But on March 10th of 2021, Madmo 2 would have his murder charge dismissed, but he would be held on the rest of the charges. But Tiny Emac, aka GM's brother, and the 2 women accused of the murder would be held to answer on all counts. They would then spend the next 3 months fighting it. But on June 11th of 2021, Madmo 2, aka KS, he would have most of the charges dismissed, but he would take a plea deal on assault with a firearm on a person again. He would get 4 years in state prison, and Tiny Emac, aka GM's brother, was acquitted on all counts. This would be Tiny Emac's Facebook bio, and as you see it says all 12 jurors not guilty. Who said God doesn't have favorites? I'm one of them. R.I.P. little sister. And as far as the 2 women go, one of them would take the murder charge, and she would take a plea deal to where it was reduced to a voluntary manslaughter, and she would get 6 years in state prison for that. And the other female, who was her sister, got all counts dismissed, but she ended up taking a plea deal for an accessory after the fact, and she got 3 years in state prison. But now you guys see how important the Madmo lineage is to the Denver Lane Bloods, and how much that name rings bells. So now I think it's time we dive into Gurl Mad, who got her name from Madmo 2, aka KS. And the name GM is starting to go viral, as we all know, because of B Braze, aka WhosWhos on YouTube. And Baby Braze, who some of you may not know, is currently in jail for 7 life sentences plus 256 years. We made a video about him, go check it out if you haven't. But let's start where we left off about GM. As you see right there, she was murdered on September 25th of 2021, while KS and her brother Tiny Emac were fighting that murder case. Nobody got arrested for it, and it would still be a cold case. This would be Madmo's Instagram, and as you can tell from the caption, he had a bunch of love for her. But as you can see right here, GM was Braze's girlfriend at the time of his trial, and would even try to get him off by testifying. But the prosecutors didn't want her to, and tried to impeach her, saying that she lied about being a gang member, and had an open case for attacking somebody with a knife from a rival gang and yelling out on lanes while attacking her. They would even cite the case law in the court, and this is what they were talking about. As you can see, it would be 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, but 3 of them counts got dismissed, and she took a plea deal on 1 of them, to where she received 5 years of probation. But then shortly after that, tragically, she lost her life due to gun violence. She was a mother, a daughter, and a sister, and she was loved in her community. May she rest in peace. And now hopefully you guys can see what type of weight and respect that name holds in the streets of Los Angeles. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I appreciate y'all. Subscribe, comment, and like. It's Respectable Rants.